What is an event in history that nobody would want repeated? It's the kind of attack you don't see coming and that can't be stopped once started. It devastated Europe and China, taking everybody by surprise. At that time, they had no defense and were helpless. Most of us today don't realize how destructive and horrifying the bubonic plague really was. The bubonic plague began in the Gobi Desert, China, according to Linda Alchin. It started in year 1328 for China, and by year 1348 moved to Europe. The living conditions at the time were very harsh, and there was overpopulation, famine between 1315 and 1317, and no running water, so everything was very unsanitary. The spread of the plague happened by a number of ways. There were trade routes that brought fleas and rats from the Black Sea to Europe, coughing from one person to another. People that were spared were people that were away from the trade routes and lived mostly in isolation, didn't come in contact with anybody that was sick. There were many theories at that time why the plague was there. They were not as advanced today and didn't know how disease spread. They thought maybe it was the earthquakes that had poisonous fumes, or maybe the devil or the weather. It was a very religious time. Symptoms include swollen lymph nodes, such as buboes in armpits, legs, neck, red, which ranged from red to black, delirium, disorientation, and high fever, which caused a lot of confusion. There was muscle pain, bleeding of the lungs, and vomiting, which was internal bleeding, tiredness, which proved to be fatal because after they would sleep so much they just wouldn't wake up. There are many treatments at that time that they tried to come up with. Since they didn't know a cure, they had many experiments. There were flagellants, which were more religious. People would whip themselves in hope that causing themselves pain would spare them mercy from their God. Simple remedies included rose and lavender for headaches, mint and balm for nausea, licorice for lungs, and vinegar as a cleansing agent. More bizarre treatments were lily root and dried toad, tobacco, arsenic, which is a poison, not to bathe, and don't sleep on your back, and carry sweet herbs and flowers with them to keep away the poisonous smell. A treatment for the Pope at the time, he sat in between two large fires in an isolated church, and he actually did not die. He survived because the fire kept away the fleas and the rats, and nobody that was sick came to see him. The illusion of Ring Around the Rosies comes from the Black Death. The ring around the roses, the red rash of the bubo, pocket full of posies, the flowers that ward off poisonous fumes, a tissue, symptoms of sneezing victims, and we all fall down, the fact that everybody that got sick would die. Bloodletting was also a common treatment. It was common even before the plague to help people. They thought they would get rid of the bad blood. And blood of the victims is usually black, kind of tarish, with a greenish scum mixed in. Death, everybody died between day 2 and 4. Hardly any survived past the 5th day. The internal bleeding caused too much damage to survive. The dead and dying, piles of bodies lined the streets, left to be dumped in mass burials. There's a picture of a burial site with several people found in it that were either burned or just buried all at once. It had a very large impact on population. Averaged 7,500 people per day, according to Linda. Overall killed 1/3, or 200 million Europeans, and in China it killed 125 million to 90 million in 50 years. Overall, the plague was a very complicated disease. Victims went through torture only to die a few days later. People tried to no avail to find a cure. This is just a small taste of what it must have been like during that time. To have actually been there would have been overwhelming for most modern people, because we don't realize just how devastating it was.